In defense of Equestria girls, take one.
Let's take this bit. Welcome everybody to my panel. It's starting a little bit late, but no worries. Hopefully we've got all our technical issues working out. In defense of Equestria girls, my name is Brian the Fuzzy, representing the Bronies of Southern Pennsylvania. Woo! And this is an opportunity for me to both vent a little bit and as well as celebrate what I feel is a proper vindication of this film franchise after a wonderful series of 3. Full disclosure, why I'm only talking about Equestria Girls, the first film, and this is mostly what I'm focusing on. I conceived of this panel several months before Rainbow Rocks ever came out. And this is the first opportunity I've ever had to really do this panel. So I consider the next 2 movies in line sort of speak for itself about the value inherent in this work. But I feel there are some things that can still be addressed. I'm really anxious to speak about them. So what is this whole experience going to be about? Call it a counter-criticism. I was a really big fan of Equestria Girls for the first movie. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was special. And I noticed a lot of really, really nasty negativity, volatility, and just plain vindictive stuff on the internet, because those are the places that I visit. I do to myself. Reacting to perceived flaws in storytelling and characterization, and just all around people not liking the film. I can understand not liking the film, but some of the things that I heard didn't seem to sit right to me in the same movie. You know, you ever have that reaction with someone, you read a review and you're like, were we watching the same thing? I don't think we were. Put simply, I've heard so many of the same sorts of complaints from people not liking the film, and I don't feel like they hold to any kind of proper logic. My goal here is to address all these common complaints against the quality of the storytelling inherent in the first Equestria Girls film, as well as analyzing the intent of the work through text and subtext. This is an exercise to basically satisfy my inner Inigo Montoya. You keep using those words. I don't think they mean what you think they mean. All right. Now, that having been said, if what you don't like about the movies, and I'm using the movies as a whole as well as the first one, if what you don't like about these includes the art style, the way the characters are designed, the songs, the styles of the songs, how they're composed, what the lyrics are, the choices for the costumes for individual characters, or if you don't like how the characters reflected an anthropomorphic version of each pony. I asked this of a friend of mine out of an anime convention recently. He said the biggest problem he had with Equestria Girls is that it fails at Ijinka, which is a term meaning anthropomorphic personification. He didn't feel like that the humanoid designs were properly reflective of the ponies they came for. If any of these things are why you don't like Equestria Girls, that's fine! Power to you guys! You know, all of these things are subject to personal taste. I am not here to argue about too many subjective things. There is a point where we will, because they have to be said. But I'm not here to argue about too many of them. It's not my intention to nitpick every single aspect of this film. I don't have the time. That having been said, though, I do feel there is one important bit of metatextual cynicism that I have to address right off the bat. And it's one that comes up all the time in this fandom. And the argument is, there's no reason whatsoever to make this spin-off. Hasbro's just interested in selling more toys and making more money. I understand this reaction. I understand it entirely. Especially if you don't care for what the product is that they're advertising. I get it. It's cathartic. And it's certainly true that most corporate interests often meddle in a lot of creative affairs to push their own interests. So let me start this panel by putting this matter to rest once and for all. Yes. Yes. That is exactly why Hasbro commissioned this film series. This is exactly why Hasbro as a company hired Lauren Faust to revive this brand in the first place. They want to sell toys and make more money. This is not a bad thing. Here's the thing I think way too many of us have forgotten, save for the occasional emergence of the buy our toys punchline that you'll always hear. At the end of the day, Hasbro is a toy company. They're in business to make money by selling toys. My Little Pony is just one of many franchise players that could properly be described as merchandise-driven. The show as a whole exists as a supplement to help sell a separate commercial product. See also this, this, and these. It happens far more often than you not think, and it is no way heinous on the part of any company. Most of these companies learned long ago that we as fans, as kids, as consumers, will be more inclined to buy a toy or a product if we actually give a damn about what those toys actually represent. So, case in point. This is a small example of my own collection.
Woo!
This does no way reflect all of the plushies I own or all of the products I own. Clearly the system is working. And talking about executive meddling, there's also a lot of people who complain about the setting. This is just High School Musical with ponies! Okay, it's set in a high school, and it is a musical, but I don't think that term is right. Both in terms of it being a cheap insult, because let's face it, High School Musical made money, and also for High School Musical itself, really, that kind of logic more applies to the friendship games, if you think about it. That plot makes a bit more sense with the academic decathlon and the sports. Anyway. So the question comes up, why is this a secondary education thing? Why is this set in a high school in particular? First and foremost, comes from a marketing perspective. A changing demographic. Keep in mind that this movie came out after 3 full seasons of the show, marketed to 8 and 10-year-olds as the primary demographic. 3 seasons worth, high school is on the horizon for most of the fans. And Hasbro commissioned this mostly to address the sheer market dominance of Monster High. I wish I could find the proper sales figures for this. This was something I tried to search for many months to locate, and unfortunately I couldn't have it broken down by individual brand. But every report I've read for consumer statistics, Monster High is killing every other toy line in existence. Hasbro wants a piece of that share, that's fine. As far as high school settings in general, though, it's a universal experience for most of the modern/developed world. Every single major country on this planet has its own version of teenage to adulthood education. In pop culture specifically, we hear mostly about the experience from the United States, the United Kingdom, or Japan, most prominently. Everybody does this. It is a singular experience that we growing up can all share in, which is why it's very important for social dynamics. And just to prove that I'm not pulling this out of my ass, here's a short list of most that around a high school setting. You know, I particularly like Clone High. That was one of my favorite shows when I was. But specifically why the high school setting in particular, apart from all of this, I'm going to let story editor Megan McCarthy and Hasbro Studios exec Mike Vogel sum it up for me.
What was really cool for us that Megan did was this idea of Wizard of Oz in reverse.
Should have known Princess Celestia would send her prized pupil here after my crown. And her little dog, too.
There's a Wizard of Oz element to this, I think. I mean, she is trying to accomplish a goal so she can get home. I mean, that is her ultimate goal.
Wizard of Oz in reverse. The most important point for, think about Wizard of Oz, how it works. Has everyone seen the movie The Wizard of Oz? We know how the story works. Dorothy goes from a mundane farm life in Kansas, dealing with disputes from somebody that her dog may have bitten, you know, working on the farm, trying to get by. A mundane, everyday life in Kansas, whisked away by a twister into a magical land of fun and whimsy. Think about how that works out for ponies. We already have talking ponies with magic and buildings and all this stuff, already living in a magical land of whimsy. What would be the reverse? To be taken from that into a mundane suburban life, which is, from Todd's perspective, is totally incomprehensible. What is this place filled with so many wonders? And these things. Let's not forget also Lauren Faust herself described the ponies as being physically mature but emotionally juvenile at the same time. Sounds a lot like teenagers to me. Okay, I'm nearly 30 years old. I can remember what life was like as a teenager. It sucked. But the most important point raised by the writing staff in addressing this film is making it clear that these are the same characters at their core as their pony counterparts, just in human terms and without the same developments and experiences of these 3 seasons of adventures. But I found in my research that when most people are complaining about the high school setting, what they mostly seem to be complaining about is, oops, oh, the video's gone. Crap, where is it? Ah, there it is. This is what they're mostly complaining about. Yes, the most heinous evil ever conceived by humankind. School spirit! Back up a bit, talking about characterization. The idea of the characters being the same at the core is reflected in the piece proper. We see Fluttershy being kind and supportive and being an animal lover. We see Rarity generously donating a disguise for Twilight to use and donating her time and energy. Applejack is bluntly honest about Sunset Shimmer's intentions when Twilight goes through the portal. Pinkie Pie is happily to welcome and take interest in a brand new student she's never met before. Rainbow Dash, there we are. Rainbow Dash throws her whole support behind Twilight like a lifelong loyal friend after Twilight proves her mettle. There is plenty of consistency to be found, if found subtly, more through the characters' actions. Right? I was going to put this dance on because it's amusing. There's something oddly mesmerizing about it. I wish I was capable of that many toe spins. Generally speaking, the most vocal and visceral complaints I've seen about the cafeteria song sequence come from people who have admittedly not seen the movie. They are upfront about they have not watched the movie and have no intention because of this. So they're lacking all the context. Quick poll before I go on. Who has not seen the first Equestria Girls and does not know what goes on here? Everybody? Great! Great, that's 4 minutes of time I can keep going with. And I understand without any context it does look like a by-the-numbers teen drama with the main 6 as some kind of weird, bizarro cheerleading squad, you know? I understand that. This was used in all the promotional material, but what I found from those who have seen the whole movie, when it comes to this sequence, a lot of their scorn tends to fall on only one character in particular. And the picture's gone. I apologize. Their character in particular is Fluttershy. Everybody tends to hate what Fluttershy is doing in this scene. No one character has become the angry, brony whipping girl more than Fluttershy. And the issue all stems from her perceived characterization in the dance sequence. The complaint is that Fluttershy is acting so out of character by taking part in this big public spectacle, this big public performance, you know, and it really is a performance. They set it up specifically to be so. The real Fluttershy would never, ever subject herself to so much public scrutiny, especially since she's got so much performance anxiety, which we would know if she was reflective of the pony person. This is actually a good point. And I thought about this I thought about the implications of this argument for a while now, and I think I've come up with an interesting theory. A theory that I call Schrodinger's Fluttershy. This is where I'm looking at the idea of Fluttershy's characterization in 2 specific cases that are both complete opposites and yet true at the same time. Bear with me. First and foremost, let's look at the first case. Fluttershy is acting totally in character as we know her as a pony. As of this point in the film, by the time the Equestria Girls song sequence comes up in the cafeteria, we've already seen Fluttershy accept Twilight as a friend. Twilight was nice to her. She defended her in front of Sunset Shimmer. You know, we know she's a nice girl. We know that Fluttershy is more than willing to help out those people she cares about, much like her pony counterpart. You know, you are a friend, she will go through whatever she can for you. And she's happy to be friends with everyone again. At this point, the Humane Five have reconciled their petty differences with one another and have become firmly entrenched behind Twilight. The crew as we know and love is back together. So this is all totally in keeping with her pony counterpart. At the same time, I want to contend that Fluttershy is acting out of character during the scene, and this is the point. Think about this from the perspective of the other Canterlot High School students. They all know Fluttershy is an extreme doormat. You know, we've seen that flashback to earlier in the day where she's handing out flyers for her animal shelter and everyone's just ignoring her completely, right? She's known to be shy and a very big introvert. Suddenly, she's very visible, very much the center of attention. And with this whole song sequence, they see her as a fun, a pretty, a cheerful girl, joining with her friends over this big, elaborately structured flash mob, and all of it is centered around the influences of Twilight. Who is this girl that she could get such a response out of this extreme doormat of a character? I must know more. So both ends, though they seem to be in conflict, are preserved, and it helps to further the characterization and the story development along. Yeah?
I was going to say, what about the episode where she takes over for Big Mac in the production on the actual show? If you know what I'm
The Pony Comes episode.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is something to consider. But unfortunately, that takes place after season 3.
Oh, okay.
Right? However, there is a season 3 episode that does sum up this, that does seem to lend credence to this idea. And don't take my word for it. Let's hear right from the horse's mouth.
I know that she's a true friend, and I'll do anything I can to help her.
Magical mystery cure. All the ponies' destinies have been changed, their relationships are altered, yet Fluttershy is still willing to go the extra mile because Rainbow Dash is her friend. One of the things I've always liked about My Little Pony is it's actually rather subtle. I've always loved the little moments in the animation where this show reminds us that these characters, for all of their magic and their human-like characteristics, are actually horses. You know? And they actually act like that. What I found interesting about the critical responses to Equestria Girls is the characters are teenage girls. Heaven forbid they actually act like teenage girls. And that's another thing also talking about the pettiness of Sunset Shimmer's plan to break them up. How it doesn't seem like that would be enough to cause so much drama that they wouldn't be on speaking terms for months. Again, I may be approaching 30 years old, but I remember high school quite clearly. I had two friends in our group who refused to speak to each other for 3 months because one of them decided to use a different chair at cafeteria time. I am not kidding. Never underestimate the power of petty drama for teenagers. But mentioning the actions of teenage girls, I would be remiss if I did not bring up one of the biggest base-breaking elephants in the room. What you're seeing on the screen is a joke conceived by a 10-year-old child. Let me admit to all of you as well that the first day I thought of it, I was laughing the rest of the month. Oh, not since Tom Sloan came into the life of Daria Morgendorffer has a potential romantic interest so viciously divided the fandom as Flash Sentry. And while I will not claim to hold any position regarding you and your waifu, I can sort of understand the backlash to some degree as far as people's shipping interests go. It's a part of the fandom experience. I get a resentment over a potential pairing you might enjoy seeing not come to fruition. What does bother me, though, is the notion that I've seen so often in regard to Flash's mere existence. Not every movie needs a romantic soap plot. This is so stupid! There are two problems that I have with this argument. The first one is a patent disgust to anything related to romantic love in the purview of My Little Pony. I do not buy this at all. Especially when you consider throughout the first 3 seasons just how many romantic pairings we've been canonically introduced to over the course of all those episodes. Including Hearts and Hooves Day. An episode about shipping. The Cutie Mark Crusaders explicitly trying to pair up 2 single ponies in the form of Cheerly and Dave McIntosh. The entire season finale was devoted to the wedding of Shining Armor and Princess Cadence, including an on-screen kiss. Cranky Doodle's first episode revolved around him rediscovering and reuniting with a lover thought long lost. And even Prince Blueblood counts. Let's not forget, during the entire course of the Grand Galloping Gala, Rarity's sole purpose of going to the dance was to be seduced by him. I am not kidding.
Yeah.
Yes, really. And that's not even counting the most prominent couple on the show so far, Mr. and Mrs. Cake. Confirmed, happily married from minute 1 of their introduction. And not only that, but we had an entire episode in season 2 Baby Cakes, which concerned the birth of their first foals together, which means not only are they a married couple, they also got busy! I apologize for my missing background again. That was supposed to be a picture showing off the cakes and pounded pumpkin. Anyway.